Hello and welcome to the 0 Days to Expiration course. This is the very first module. And the first question or point that we need to address is to understand what the big deal is with these options. What is the advantage to trading 0 days to expiration options? If you have spent any time at all studying how options move in terms of their pricing, then this graph should be very familiar to you. What this shows is the difference in option value versus time. Now, I haven't defined how much time this means. I'm just saying starting here and then ending up at this T1 value, which generally represents expiration. So this could be 60 days. And 60 days, we would see this option value decay exponentially, and it would decay faster and faster and faster until it got to expiration. Think of this as like a large raging fire that's sitting at one end of the room, and you're holding an ice cube in your hands, and that ice cube is starting to melt. And as it gets closer and closer and closer to the fire, it senses more of the fire with a square of the distance and begins to melt all that much more rapidly. Now, we talked about 60 days and we'd see exponential decay. So most of that decay would happen in the last week or two of that time frame. But what if this was 1 day? We would start off with a certain amount of value at the beginning of the day, and then almost immediately that would start to erode until it dropped to 0 at the actual expiration date. So the big advantage here is instead of waiting 60 days to earn our fair share of time decay, which is generally what we do, is sell options for the purpose of time decay capture. What if that was 1 day instead? Then our profits would be that much more rapidly earned. Now, if we look at this on a live option chain, we can see that we have a 0 day expiration, 0 days to expiration. These are the options that are out of the money. These are the put options that are out of the money. These are the call options that are out of the money. But we can see that even these out of the money options, which have no intrinsic value, this is all extrinsic value. So this is all that time value or premium that we talk about, which is basically fluff. It doesn't exist. There is no value to these. However, there's a probability to these. For instance, this option right there at 33.55 has got a value of delta of 10, which means that there's a 10% probability that by the end of the day, this option could be in the money and could have intrinsic value to it. So therefore, they have to assign this a value. They have to give it value to that option. There is extrinsic value to that option. We can take the other side of the option chain up to the calls, and we can say, okay, this option here at 34.05 has got a 14% probability that it's going to be in the money by the expiration at the end of the day. So therefore, we have to give it value. We have to assign it a value. In this case, it's a $1.05 bid by a $1.20 offer. So we can sell these out of the money, or in some cases, even at the money options, and experience that time decay in that extrinsic value. And as we pointed out, it happens very, very rapidly within the span of 6.5 hours on a typical cash session day. So that's the very attractive reason why there's so much buzz right now around 0 days to expiration options and the trading of them. Because when you do it right, you can earn your profits in a very short period of time. Something that normally used to take us several weeks, we can do in the span of just a few hours. Now, as you might imagine, anytime something looks to be too easy, it usually ends up not being that easy. Fundamentally, we do have that edge in our favor, but we have to work very, very hard to keep that edge in our favor and to risk manage the positions. And this is really what the rest of this program is about. So it's not just starting with the advantage and the edge, although that does help. It does help to trade a strategy with a very defined edge to it. And it's hard to beat the edge of a 0 DTE option.